Is good, everybody out there? Thanks again for checking in to another episode of Court Thoughts, a channel where we basically talk basketball. I've mentioned in previous episodes that I'm very invested in trying to make this channel look and feel primo quality, or as my nephew will say, chef kiss. I wanted to make the feel of the set or this room, whatever you want to call it, feel a little bit more basketball friendly, and so I designed a jersey display that's literally right behind me. In this video, we're actually going to go through and break down how I designed it and how I got to the end result. All right, let's get into it. Before I bought any supplies, the first thing that I did was I took out a measuring tape and just measured the area that I was looking to put this jersey display. Now the area itself is 2 meters by 2 meters. It's actually a relatively small room, but I originally had intentions of filling that whole back wall behind me. Now, the next thing that I did was I sat down and put pen to paper and planned out what this was going to look like. I had seen a bunch of YouTube videos on really simple PVC clothing rack designs, and I was inspired by something relatively similar and ultimately went with something really basic. Now that I have everything planned out, the next step is to make a short trip down to my local hardware store and pick up all the supplies that I needed. Now at the end of the video, I do give a full breakdown on all the supplies that I grabbed, including the cost of everything, so stay tuned for that part. Now that I have everything home that I need, the next step is just to organize all the supplies. Right here, I'm unpacking the utility hooks that I bought. Now there was a bunch of options. I actually settled on some really simple ones because, well, you're really not gonna see them. Once I had my painter's tarp set up, the next step was to connect the PVC pipes. The pipes I'm using are 1 meter long with a 15 millimeter diameter. Now, depending on the size of your frame, you may need to adjust your design so it can brace for the weight. The couplings and connections will help you do that, but just make sure they are secure. The next step I took was to cut one of the pipes to form the legs. So I started by making measurements and using painter's tape as a guide. At the end, I will give a breakdown of all the cutting sizes. I found that the painter's tape was a really good way to help keep me with a straight cut, but also I found that making a small score in the pipe made the process easier. But your boy ain't a carpenter, so take that with a grain of salt, people. Next step, I used 60 grit sandpaper that I had at home and a utility knife to smooth the cuts, but with the connections you won't see any rough edges. My primary concern was making sure the cuts were straight. After that, I started the process of forming the basic leg structure. Now I'm using 2 legs, and this is what I ended up with. Once the legs were secured, I began the process of painting the frame. I went with a flat black design to give it some contrast to the area. Now, something that is really important is you need to give it a light coat to start with and then go heavier, being careful not to cause dripping. I also used a heat gun to speed up the process of drying, but don't go too close or you will ruin the paint. Once the frame was dry enough, I drilled pilot holes for the screws. I used hollow wall screws so that they were less likely to fold under the weight and ruin my flawless work of art. So I brought the frame in to see what it looked like in the space, and it was trash. It killed too much of the little amount of space I was working with, so I had to make adjustments. Once I cut the size down, I used this clear enamel I had at home to protect the paint. Otherwise, little bumps and scratches will ruin all my hard work. This stuff is really cheap. I believe a can is like maybe $5. Once I got the frame into the space, I unpacked the USB port and LED strip. I then connected the LED strip to the back of the frame to give it a nice back glow. I also used cable ties to fasten the connection as the LED strip only has 3M tape on the back. Now, the final result. as I promised earlier in the video, I'm gonna start off by giving you guys the whole size measurements and all that good stuff. There was 4 1-meter strips of PVC piping, as I mentioned before, 15mm diameter. I also made 4 5-inch cuts. Now 5 inches is roughly about 12.5 centimeters, and I had 2 1-inch cuts, again roughly about 2.5 centimeters. That was in order to give me the ideal leg shape that I was looking for. Part of the reason why I made the amendments was it really just protruded out into the space a lot, and well, it was really wide. It wasn't really what I was looking for, so you know, had to make some adjustments. It is what it is. Now, the full breakdown of the costs in order to make that beautiful jersey display behind me are Powerboard. It cost me $23.50 just to be able to provide me some USB outlets to give it the lighting that I wanted to give it. 5 meters of LED strip. I bought that from Kmart. It was $15.05. Spray paint, which was $15.05. The 5-pack of hooks that I used were $4.88. The PVC pipe that I bought, as previously mentioned, was 1 meter with 15mm diameter, was $3.80 a meter. Now, I needed 5 of them in order to make the actual display, so that's $19 there. The most expensive part, I would have to say, that was surprising was all the connections. The PVC elbows, I needed 6 of them. They were $2.55 each. That came into $15.30. The T connections were $2.40 each, and I needed 4 of those bad boys, so that's $9.60. And the hollow wall screws. Now, the hollow wall screws were just to enable me to screw the hooks in without there being any sort of movement when it started to have a little bit of pressure put on the hook. They came in a pack of 5 and they were $5.60. Now, the total price came into $114.93. Look, I'm sure that there's a cheaper way to do it, but to be honest with you, I'm really happy with how this came out. It exceeded my expectations, and well, it was a lot of fun making it, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Now, if you're a small-time content creator like me, well, this might be right up your alley. Something to create to kind of display your jerseys in the back of your videos, or maybe you've got a man cave, maybe you've just got a clothing rack that you need and you don't want to fork out the money, you want to make it yourself, make something custom. This is absolutely a really good option. Now, you don't have to go with PVC. You definitely can buy other sorts of piping and go for an industrial look. There's a bunch of options. Duck into your local hardware store, have a tinker. Feel free to use the design that I did, and if you do, make sure you do your boy a favor and jump in my comments and let me know. But I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. It absolutely does help, as your boy is trying to climb that mountaintop of my first 1,000 subscribers, so I can absolutely do with all the help that I can get. That's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for kicking it with your boy. And until next time, make sure you're looking after yourself, you take care, and be safe. All right. Peace.
Good day, sir.